Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'a sunnatahu ila yawmiddin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome again to another episode of your weekly Islamic discussion show, Guest of the Week, coming to you from Sharjah TV. As always, I'm your host Ismail Bullock, and today we want to talk about something that pretty much most people, I would even dare to say 99.9%, or something really close to that at least, of the world's population now use social media applications. Various applications, we all know the names of them, so many variations. So today we want to discuss the pros and cons of using those, because of no doubt you can either use them for good or you can use them for bad. And to do that with me is brother Muhammad Khan. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair for coming on.
Barakallah fi.
Now, social media, like I said, pretty much, I actually believe I saw some stats one time, and if I'm not mistaken, it was at least 90 or 90% of the whole world actually own mobile phones now and are on social media. Even some of what you may say the most poverty-stricken countries, they may live in a hut with a tin roof, or even a straw roof, but they have a mobile phone and to some extent social media, internet connectivity. So it's amazing how many people are using these platforms. But as I started off with, which we're going to elaborate on, there is so much, they can either do so much good, and unfortunately a lot of the time so much bad or wasting of time, etc. is done on these. So that's what we're going to discuss today, basically.
Yeah, actually, I would start with an example. As you said, it can do a lot of bad and it has a lot of good. It's just similar to a knife. With a knife, you can cut vegetables and cook good food. On the other hand, you can harm someone. So social media is exactly like this. It can harm, it has a lot of harms, it has a lot of cons, and it has a lot of benefits as well. And if we see that communication has progressed, previously, there was only verbal communication. Then came a time people used to carve images for communication. Then after that, paper was invented. Then came the time we had, it was the era of literature, a lot of books, and that's how people, sent their messages across, and that's how people communicated. Then came a time when television and satellite media was introduced, and this took the world by storm. And even till today, it's one of the most famous media out there, which has a very wide reach. Satellite television channels and this type of media is very effective. Now, for the past 20 years or so, we have social media, which has been introduced, and we have various platforms where social media and different social medias are introduced, whether it's accessible through phones and laptops and your computer, even your television set at home. So we see that communication has progressed. And today, it's just a click of a button. It's just a click away. Even if you are in UK, I'm in Dubai, if I need to communicate with you, it's just a button away, it's just a click away. This is how easy it has become to communicate with each other.
It's quite funny you mentioned, because you actually find now as well that some of the social media platforms that initially came and you would upload videos to them, people now actually make channels on those social media platforms. They don't even need to open a TV station anymore. You have people who are making money by doing channels on these famous video uploading platforms, that they don't even have to go through the expense, etc. of they have a professional camera, and you see people are actually making a living at it. So you see people who are doing, and maybe we'll touch upon that later, who knows, but prank videos or so-called comedy videos or whatever it may be, wildlife documentaries. And they started off, without mentioning any names, if I can even remember his name, but there's one that I've seen my children watching, that he literally started off by having an interest in animals and going around to different places with his own camera. He became more and more famous. People came and said to him, look, we'll sponsor you. Now he has millions of subscribers and he's making millions of dollars. And it all started by a high quality camera with one of him and his friends going around picking up animals and making his own wildlife documentaries. So we can see it really has taken off. And to some extent, like you mentioned, it has taken over to some extent as well. Even a lot of the modern day television is watching these channels on your television.
That's right.
Your television is now linked up to the internet, and you're going onto these platforms, and you have some platforms now who are making movies and documentaries, and you can't upload to them, but they make movies and documentaries, again, solely for the internet.
That's
or
right.
their platform you can subscribe to, but they're not a TV channel. You can't get them on satellite TV. You can't get them. You literally have to subscribe to their application, and then you can get high quality, pretty much that are on the same level or are at the same level, and even have famous actors, all online. So like you said, it really has gone like people would never would have imagined when it started around those 20 years ago.
That's right. And because previously, like the writers, the authors of books, the organizers, and those who used to run satellite channels, only specific people had access to the media, and specific people had access to communicating their thoughts or their ideologies or their thinking across. For example, 50 years ago, if someone wants to record something and make it reach to people, he would have to go to a satellite channel and buy the rights, and then he has to pay and whatnot. For someone to start something, a program or so, he has to own a satellite channel and this. But nowadays, or even for the book in that case, if there is a book, you have to write, you have to go to the publishing house, you have to print, and then your text material is outside. Today, lay people can access this, and they can write books, they can freely write. There are blogs, there are websites, and then, as you said, videos. You just need your mobile camera, and now, mashallah, mobile cameras are also HD and 4K and whatnot. You just have that, and you record and you upload, and that's it. Sometimes it's even better than a lot of things happening there on the channels. So the point is that communication has progressed, and today people have easy access to social media, which makes it easily accessible to communicate their thoughts, their ideologies, record videos, write books, and so on and so forth. Therefore, as Muslims, we need to see this from an Islamic perspective, and we need to see the benefits and the harms of social media. And therefore, we control ourselves accordingly. We balance ourselves accordingly. We are not here to give any fatwa of haram or halal, but then we see what are the benefits and what are the harms of using social media. Number one, as I said and we've discussed, is communication. We can easily communicate with each other. And if we see that in the right perspective, as a good deed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in various ahadith, that it is important, in fact it is wajib for us to maintain the ties of kinship with our parents, with our relatives, and this makes it very easy.
I think nowadays we are more sinful than maybe before, because before people had excuses that he lives in another country or he lives in another town, and then the phones came along. Oh, but whatever the excuse might be, but now they have so many platforms, so many ways. Pretty much everybody has these options where you can message each other for free on your mobile. Just need internet connection. So it's really hard now for anyone to get out of that.
No excuse anymore.
There's no excuse, really. Literally, there's no excuse.
And this is what I tell the youth, especially when I address the youth about obedience towards parents. I tell them that after the lecture, or maybe now, you should send a message to your mother or your father saying that I love you and I thank you for everything. And this is something which is alien to a lot of people, because a lot of people are shy to walk up to their parents and say to them that thank you for whatever you have done, or I love you for the sake of Allah, and thank you, you've brought me up since when I was a child, and you fed me, you gave me this clothing and education, everything. So it is very easy on a daily basis, or even actually if you see maybe twice a day or once in 2 days, if we just text message to our relatives, especially the near ones, our parents, if they're not living with us, and even if they're living with us, if we do this, it makes their day, to be honest. It makes their day, it makes them really happy, and we can easily check on them. Relatives, not all relatives are usually living today. We don't have much of a concept of joint family, or people living, people are living in different countries, people are living in different areas, people are, they are into diversified things, and people find it difficult to maintain the ties of kinship. So what you can do through social media is that you can connect with them. You can know if they need anything. You can know if they're going through a problem. You can fulfill their needs through social media, through these medias. And this will, inshallah, help you fulfill your obligation towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of hukukul ibad. And this is a very important. You can easily communicate with your near ones. You can easily communicate with your friends. You can communicate with a lot of scholars and du'at. Because if we see previously, people had to travel, literally travel across countries to seek knowledge, to get access to a scholar, to learn from a scholar. Today, alhamdulillah, you just have it, you record a message. If you have a question and you get a reply from the scholar, you send an email, you get a reply, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it so easy for us. So this is one of the benefits, that communication has become very easy, and we should use this in the proper channels. We should use this in the right way. Number two is that alongside communication, we also see that passing on information. Like, we can easily pass information, and this comes under the category, if we see from the Islamic perspective, to give da'wah has become easy. You can easily invite people towards Islam. You can easily tell them about Islam. You can easily share, like nowadays, you can share short videos. You can share WhatsApp. You can share some messages, some posters. You can share these things. And this way you can invite others towards the beauty of Islam. You can tell them about Islam. Because if you imagine, if you don't have social media, you go and you have to individually, or say maybe through public lectures or whatever the case might be, through in public gatherings, you have to preach or tell about Islam or correct people about their understanding. But nowadays, through these medias, it has become very easy, and it is very beneficial that we invite people, we tell them, we convey the message of Islam through these channels. And of course, having said that, we need to keep certain conditions in mind as well, that we don't just bombard people, because that's what happens. People they get overexcited, and then all of a sudden you'll see like 50 messages in a day, or you will see like there are post by post, every minute there's a post. So we need to go like gradually, then only our da'wah will be effective. But yes, this media is very effective when it comes to conveying the message, and when it comes to giving da'wah, and things have become easy. Like, you can type articles, you can type blogs. We have easy access to the scholars, to know about what's good, what's bad, to know about the fatawas. And alhamdulillah, through this media, it has become very easy for us, and this is one of the benefits of social media and the likes.
You think about it, as you just mentioned, we have access to the scholars. We have so much access that we should, in theory, with what we have available through social media and through the internet, we should be, in my opinion, we should have more scholars maybe now than we had in the past, because we have. Before I go into that, we'll just go for a break. Join us, inshallah, after this short break. Welcome back. Now, Brother Muhammad, just before the break, I started to mention the fact that we have so much access to knowledge. In the past, the scholars, we heard of scholars who would travel from Syria to Medina just to check the clarification of one hadith. Now we can go online and we can type a hadith in a database and find the chain of narration exactly. So in theory, we should be using the social media and the technology that we have for this kind of thing. So we should see that the majority of the Muslims in reality should be very highly knowledgeable in Islam. But unfortunately, we see that they tend to use the social media for things that in reality a lot of time are just a waste of time.
That's right. And that's a point in terms of when we come to discussing the harms, that it's a waste of time. But as you rightly said, access to knowledge is easy through these medias. And subhanallah, this point really astonishes us, that if we just compare how, like Imam Shafi, Imam Malik, how they traveled for collecting a hadith, and today, as you said, it's just on the fingertips. The scholars, they have done the work, and subhanAllah, we are not even using that which is available now with the classifications, with everything, just on our fingertips. So we should use this as Muslims. We should gain knowledge, not only this, but a lot of material is available to us. Previously, if someone wants to learn something, he has to go attend a dars, he has to go attend halakas, he has to wait for that specific topic. He has to wait for maybe that specific topic in the khutbah. But nowadays, alhamdulillah, you go there, type the name of the righteous, good scholars, authentic du'at, you type the name, you type the topic, and you have it there. Whichever day, whichever time you want, you have it there. You can just download the video, or you can watch it online, and subhanAllah, this is how you can access to topics which you want to know about. And this is a great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Moving ahead, yes, not to forget to mention that this even has social media. It also has a lot of benefit when it comes to business. In terms of when we see the worldly perspective, if there is someone, it easily connects them. It's helpful for marketing, for branding, and it connects people like teachers with their students. It connects the employees with their bosses or managers. So we see even apart from da'wah, the benefit which it has in terms of da'wah, that is there. But even when we come to the worldly aspect, you can have meetings, you can have groups, you can have meetings of your office in the group, you can have a blog specifically, and there are many applications as well where you can have a proper meeting like in a boardroom. You can have it just on your mobile phones. So alhamdulillah, this is again a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is what is one of the greatest benefits of social media. Now, if you allow me to move ahead, we'll discuss a few harms of social media as we are short on time. Number one, as you said and you pointed, is wastage of time. And people waste a lot of time on social media because as we said, there is a lot of beneficial stuff out there in terms of books, videos and websites. There is a lot of stuff which is useless as well, which is not beneficial. And the Prophet ﷺ, he seeked refuge from ilmin la yanfa, from knowledge which is not beneficial, from knowledge which does not benefit, which is useless. And therefore that's what happens. A lot of people, they go on social media and they waste their time. And it's 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. They are heedless, they are unaware about the time, and they waste this time. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said about this, a beautiful saying, that death separates you from this world. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, death separates you from this world, whereas wasting time separates you from Allah. So we see that time is very important, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he swore by time, wal asr, in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa allazina amanu wa amilu salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqq, wa tawasaw bis sabr. That time is very important, and we need to use this time properly, efficiently. This is what a Muslim is supposed to do. When you use social media, say Bismillah and begin. Take a note of your time and know that you should not waste time. Sadly, we see a lot of people when it comes to browsing videos or browsing content or interacting. There is useless interaction. All of this wastes a lot of time, and this is something which is harmful for us, for our deen, and we shouldn't be doing this because we have to value time. We don't know how long we're going to stay. Time is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't know that when will death strike us. So we need to see that time is a blessing from Allah, and we shouldn't waste this time on these social media platforms, which many people are doing.
We know the hadith that talks about to 5 before 5, and that it was, that's about also that hadith is pretty much talking about, in most aspects, the time, to use your youth before you're old, to use your health before you become sick. That's all related to time. So it's showing us that use your time wisely, because you don't know how long you'll have left to use that. You may become sick, and then you're no longer able to do some of the things you could have done because you're wasting all your time while you're healthy doing pretty much useless things, and now you're ill, you can't do anything, good or useless. you may pass away when you spent your life just doing useless things. So there's obviously big emphasis there on using your time wisely. And something that pops to my mind, and maybe you're going to touch upon this as well, is we wish that it was only people sending pointless or useless information. Unfortunately, people are sending around everywhere pretty lewd, nudity, pornographic, all these kind of materials are being sent like anything. People will have these various platforms, they'll be used for this, whether it's people doing things live, whether it's people making on the platforms that are used to put photos or videos, and somebody will literally make an account just to put pictures of, for example, naked women everywhere.
That's right.
Or videos of literally, he's just taken his daily effort to keep posting every day. What a waste of time, and what a useless thing in reality. But this is a big, maybe I'm sure this is probably on your list, but this is one of the big fitnas or the big trials or the big problems with the social media. Apart from the nonsense and useless information, is the complete ludity that is.
That's right.
Lewdness that is just out there.
Because if you imagine, like 100 years back, if someone wanted to commit a similar sin, he has to sneak out of his house, he has to, take a transportation, he has to go to a place, find a place where he can, look at certain haram things. It's difficult. It's difficult. But nowadays, it's just on your fingertips. And this is why we have to be more cautious, because the trial is more. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us more, because the fitna is more. And if one is patient and he's conscious about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will get more rewards. And we should not leave our consciousness in a state of heedlessness due to this. People are doing that. There are people who are into haram. There are people who are doing haram things, like, as you said, uploading and making specific pages, to corrupt the youth especially. We should have this consciousness and taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which will help us to abstain from this. So heedlessness is again one of the harms of social media, along with wasting time, that person, he becomes heedless. He is so much engrossed into this media that he doesn't care like who's around him and what's happening and what are my priorities, what are my commitments, and he's just just scrolling and posting and scrolling and checking, and every other minute it sends him in a state of heedlessness. The time which he could spend in zikr, the time which he could learn few surahs, the time which he could advise someone or take some good advice, it's being wasted in useless browsing of this media. And this is what you must have seen mostly when people are invited to a dinner or lunch, whatever the case might be. There are people sitting and everyone is busy in their own phones.
Yeah, that's true. That's become kind of funny, but not funny as in like a sad kind of funny. That, yeah, right. Like you mentioned, I mean, we're all guilty. I imagine most of us are guilty of it. But there are some people literally who get together in a gathering. A bunch of guys get together, and they will literally spend nearly the whole time. So you're kind of thinking, why did you even get together? What was the purpose of getting together with your friends or going out for dinner with your family when all of you are just on the phone? You might as well just stayed at home, because you've lost the purpose of going out or getting together with your friends to speak and to have this social interaction and cohesion. You're just sitting there on your phone.
That's right.
But it happens, and we see it everywhere.
That's right. And apart from that, like one of the harms which comes to my mind is that exposing your sins. This is again a calamity, I would call, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, all of my ummah will be forgiven except the one who sins openly. Now we know that when a person, he commits a sin in the day, Allah covers it up. He commits a sin in the night, Allah covers it up. Allah covers the sins of his slaves. Now what happens if a person, he comes by himself to expose his sins, and this is what happens, like people, they post on social media that, I did such and such a thing. I went to such and such a place, exposing their sins, what they have done, exposing, I have such and such affair, or they share something which is haram to watch, something which is haram to see, And this is how they expose their sins, and this is a very dangerous aspect which we should be aware about, because kullu bani Adam khata. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said. Every son of Adam makes mistakes, but the best of us is the one who repents. And when a person he falls into sin, he's supposed to hide it. He's not supposed to expose it to others, because if one posts something on social media, I committed such a sin, you might motivate the other person to commit that sin, and then you are guilty for that as well. If that person commits a sin, you are guilty as well. If you share something haram, and this is again a point which is to be pondered about. If you share something haram, this becomes a gunah jariyah for you. This becomes like an ongoing sin for you. For example, as you said, if someone shares a photograph which is immoral, which is not morally correct. Now the person who has shared this, he might have shared with his contacts, with his friends. Now they look at this, they share it ahead. Maybe it has got 5,000 views. Now all those 5,000 views is upon the head of the first person. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, Surah Ma'idah, ayah number 2, that help one another in goodness and taqwa. And do not help one another in sins and transgression. So what is happening here? It's connecting. It's like, it's a connection. The person is exposing his sins, number one. The person is motivating others to commit sins. And the person is becoming a part of that ongoing sin, which we call gunah jariyah. Like as we have sadaqah jariyah, like you plant a tree, you dig a well, you make a masjid. Even if you die, you will keep getting the reward for that. Similarly, if you commit a sin, even if you die and people keep looking at that, you have passed on that information, it's really scary, because in the grave you will keep getting that sin on your balance. And subhanAllah, we can just imagine this. If a person, hypothetically, he died with such a balance, his good deeds were here, higher than his bad deeds, and he died with something such as gunah jariyah, and now the sins increase until the day of the resurrection, it goes more than his good deeds. This is scary. And this is something, which we all should ponder about. What we like, what we share, and what we post.
I'll just hold you on that point, inshallah. Join us for the final part of the show after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, before we go on to the next topic, just recapping what you said, that was quite a potent thing that you mentioned. Like somebody could literally die, and his scales already, his good deeds are way above his bad deeds. But like you said, before he died, he shared a certain picture or whatever, and that keeps on going and going and going until it overtook. That's very, very, very serious to kind of think about and reflect upon. I guess now in the final part of the show, we want to focus on we've heard about the good things you can use it for and the bad things you can use it for. So we want to kind of give some guidelines, or for lack of a better word, some etiquettes that can be for the viewers on how they should try and Islamically or correctly use the various social media platforms.
The number one point is that we need to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to have this consciousness of Allah. Whether we are in the masjid, or we are traveling, or we are inside inside our house or inside the room where no one is looking at us, no one can see us, we have access to everything, we should know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us. And this will help us to channelize, to be productive, and to use social media in proper ways. Because once you have this taqwa of Allah, because a lot of people, they keep doing wrong things there, but if people are around them, they stop. Or say even if there is a laptop or a computer in a house kept in a public area, say like in a dining room, where everyone can walk by and see what's happening there, a person might fear sitting and doing something wrong in that. Similarly, when you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me all the time, and Allah doesn't sleep, Allah doesn't need sleep, and Allah is not unaware of my activities, Allah knows everything. Allah is seeing me all the time. So when you have this concept, you will inshallah use social media in proper way. And we need to have this. You start off with Bismillah, you use it for productive things, and have this taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That reminds me of a very potent hadith, and you can probably implement that upon most of us. And may Allah forgive us and make us from those ones who really are opposite to this. But Allah talks about the person who will come on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and he will have like mountains of good deeds, and they'll become like dust. Why? Because when he was alone, he would come to those haram things. When no one's around watching him from mankind, from humankind, he would fall into these harams. So this wiped out his deeds. And this is very scary, because so many of us, in reality, some degree to the other, maybe can relate to this. So this is something to try and wake us up, really, to realize that when you're on that social media, to try and remember this hadith, all these hajjs and all these umrahs and all these salahs and all these da'wah and all this stuff you've done, which could be so high, but then when you're alone, you keep looking at this and looking at that and doing this. Quite serious.
That's right.
To say the very least.
That's right. And we have to have this consciousness that we are accountable for whatever we do in real life and on social media, both. Because what happens is, you might see a person, he's fighting on social media. He's like a warrior. He's fighting with you. He's maybe backbiting. He's lying. He's slandering. Whatever the case might be. In reality, he might not be the same person. He might not have that courage, maybe, to do so. But on social media, or he might consider, for example, if I say such a thing to Brother Ismail, he might feel bad. So he doesn't tell you when he meets you. But on social media, he's all, no problem. Why? Because we have some distorted concepts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold us accountable for what we did in real and what we typed as well. What we did on social media as well. Kiraman Katibin, these angels, they record everything. Whatever you do online, offline, whatever the case might be, they record everything.
That's right. I mean, we know that in Surah Qaf, Allah says, لا يلفت من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد, that you do not even mention a single utterance, a single word, statement, except that it's written down. So like you said, this is verbally, this is on the on social media, and even social media, we have to again have good character. We know the Prophet ﷺ said, أقربكم مني يوم القيامة أحسنكم أخلاقا. The closest of you to me on the day of judgment will be the best of you in manners. And we know that also the Prophet ﷺ said that the heaviest thing on the scales, obviously after Tawheed and the belief in Allah, is the manners. And the Prophet ﷺ himself said, إنما بعثت لأتمم أو أكمل مكارم الأخلاق. I was not sent except to perfect the best of character. And obviously the best of character ultimately, and the pinnacle of the best of character is the best of character with your Lord, worshiping Him alone. But no doubt it's about the way you speak to people and the way you treat people. So if you're going on social media and foul-mouthing and insulting, it's no different than judgment-wise, it's no different than doing it in person. You're still supposed to have good moral character on social media, like you said, not to be a keyboard warrior, where you're behind the keyboard and you're insulting and you're all doing all kinds of things because no one can see you. And you become like a second personality on the screen, insulting, swearing, but in front of everybody you're nice and polite.
That's right.
It doesn't work like that.
That's right. And the harm there is that hundreds of people see what you do. For example, if it's an individual meeting, two individuals are meeting and they have some dispute, fight, or some as you said, display of bad akhlaq, that's a different thing. But here, hundreds of people are seeing and they get motivated. Then they learn this and then they start doing that. So the harm is doubled here, which is something which we should be aware of. So we should keep in mind that control your social media activities and don't let it control you. We are supposed to control what we do online and on social media, and we should not let it control us. Like if we manage our time, say I will have my time divided and I will go here, I will go with a valid purpose, and I'm going to do this for specific time, specific minutes, specific hours, and this is my work, whether it's related to da'wah, whether it's watching something beneficial, whether it's your work, it's meetings, or whatever the case might be, it's marketing, let it be anything related to your school, universities, or workplaces. So manage time, and inshallah this will help you use it productively, and you will be away from the sins which we mentioned. Because what happens is when we become casual, when we become that okay, no problem, let's just go there and waste some time. This is the problem. This is what happens, and then we start browsing things which are useless. We start doing things which are useless. We start posting things which are of not much benefit, and this way we start to sway and we start to go with the flow of shaitan, and he deceives us in the harms which we mentioned earlier. So use it for beneficial purposes, and maybe like those who come from management and all, they can make a chart. They can time their things well, and they can know okay what they are doing exactly there, how many hours they require, how many minutes, and inshallah this is how they can utilize using social media for good. Apart from that, try not to waste your time behind like chit-chatting uselessly, or trying to make affairs and trying to make friends with girls and girls with boys, and the whole thing which is there, which is unacceptable and which needs to be maintained. Try not to do this, because a lot of people, they waste and they try to hunt spouses. They try to think okay, now I can get married here, and they start hunting. Alhamdulillah, Islam has a proper channel for everything. If a boy, he wants to get married, there is a proper channel he has to go through. If a girl wants to get married, there is a proper channel she has to go through. But we use these things, and we use this in improper way, and then we end up in difficulties.
I mean, and the reality is the majority of them who start like this end up
in troubles
in a bad way, because someone, like you said, behind the screen, you don't know the reality. Of course, the person who wants to propose to the woman, who wants to get to know her, is going to be the best guy behind the screen because he's after something, or maybe even vice versa. But the reality is, we see so many of these times when the relationships start like this, that the person turns out to be completely different than they assumed, or the man or the woman are completely different than what their online personas were. So this is something, like you mentioned, is definitely should be avoided. And something that comes to my mind is, we touched upon earlier about the knowledge. So many of these platforms now have channels you can subscribe to, where you can do online courses.
Right.
So you can have a scholar who could be in Mecca or in Medina or somewhere, that you can't get the chance to go and spend months with him, but he has like a 1-year online program, for example, where you get sent 4 days a week, a 30-minute, 1-hour lecture. You listen to it. Every 10 lectures, you have an online multiple choice exam. Right. At the end, you get a certificate from the Sheikh himself. These kind of things. There's so many in whatever language, in Arabic, in Urdu, in French, in English, so much available. So we should try and use the social media for these purposes.
That's right.
If you can't get to the holy places to study, or the well-known universities, these days you can do a lot of it, even not even on a website. You can do it driving your car, going to work, on the train, listening to this lecture, filling in the form. And before you know it, you've built yourself a really good foundation of Islamic knowledge.
That's right.
No excuses anymore, literally.
Yeah, that's right. And therefore, we use this in the proper channels, and seeking knowledge, giving da'wah, connecting with our family and friends, and using it in halal ways. And we do not sin. We do not sin or become a part of sin. And this is the last point which I want to mention, that what happens is, when you like something, or when you share something, or when you become a part of something, whether it's good or bad, you will get the sawab or the sin. If someone has shared something which is immoral, immodest, you just move away from that place, or from that post, or whatever the case might be. But if you like it, if you share it, you are becoming a part of it. And as I said, Allah says, do not become partners in sins and transgression. Do not help each other in sins and transgression. Don't help each other in that. So we need to help each other in goodness. As you said, if there are such places, where people can learn online, they can ask questions, and they can learn about their deen, they can convey the message. We should pass on this information, we should share this information, rather than, becoming a part of the sins, liking these posts and sharing these posts.
Jazakallah khair for coming on and sharing that with us. And again, for the viewers, we hope you can take this away with you, inshallah, for us as well, and all of us. Try and use the social medias in the very best ways that we've discussed, and try and avoid all the negative aspects of it, inshallah. And until next time, I leave you as always with the greetings of peace. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.